Hello, beautiful. I'm your host, Nicole Goff. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast, the podcast for women who want it all: health, wealth, freedom, authenticity, love, beauty, all of the hidden gems just waiting to be uncovered. This is the podcast for women who are ready to discover their inner creatrix, to discover their inner manifester, and who want to find the ecstatic in every day. Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to the Ecstatic Life Podcast. Today, I am coming at you with a solo episode on how being a mompreneur can make your life more ecstatic. And this is one of my favorite subjects because I have been a mompreneur going on 2 decades now. It has been a huge part of my life and my journey in motherhood. And I love helping other women to be empowered, to take on raising kids full time and making money if that's something you desire to do, or putting yourself out there in the world creatively in some way, birthing things besides children, along with birthing children. So I am timing this particular message to go out because right now I have my very first workshop launching on the same day that this podcast will be going out. And this has been quite an undertaking and has been a ton of fun and very rewarding. And I have learned a lot, but it has also been a lot of work. I was also doing this at the same time that I have launched my blog and my podcast and my coaching business, Ecstatic Life. So there has been a lot going on the last 6 months for me. So this topic has been very salient. And actually, the very first blog that I ever did on my blog, Ecstatic Life, was titled Be a Boss Babe, but Bring Your Babies to Work. So I have gotten asked one question a lot of times the last 18 years, and that is, how the hell do you get so much work done with all these kids around? So if you didn't know, I have 5 kids. And my eldest is 18, and I have always been a working stay-at-home mom. And I have gotten that question a lot, and especially recently, my youngest is 2 or potty training. I launched this podcast and this business, and the podcast, I love doing it. It is so rewarding. But it does take a lot of time. I'm also about to launch this 7-day detox course, which I'm super excited about. But that's been a lot of work too. A lot of recording, editing. I'm doing everything myself from scratch. I don't have any hired help yet, which I am really looking forward to getting there, to pay somebody else to do my editing. I would love to have a team that I am working with, but right now it's just not in the budget yet. So all of the video editing and everything I am doing all by myself. And I am also about to be stepping into a 3-month container for business coaching, which is going to be super big for me. And I'm so excited. I'm just so revved up about that. And I can't wait. But that will be, again, that's another commitment. And yet I still stay home with my kids, homeschool them. I'm there for them every day with quality alone time, making homemade from scratch. I am a super big advocate for meals all being from scratch as much as possible. And these things are very important to me. And still having time to spend with my husband and with my friends and run a homeschool co-op. And one of the things that has been really helpful is getting up really early and meditating. Meditating actually has added like hours to my day, getting my body really healthy and clean. So I'm launching this 7-day detox program, as I said, And everything that I teach in that has really been so helpful in just like cleaning my system out, getting down to this like base level of health. And I have so much energy now. And now that ebbs and flows, I've been trying to work with my cycle more. So sometimes during the month, at some parts of the month, I give myself more rest. I have it marked on my calendar now, or I have a rest week when I'm leading up into having my period. So that way I don't overdo it in those times when your body is actually going through this huge natural detox process. But in general, getting on top of my health has been really such a game changer. Now, I was a single mom with my eldest for 6 years, and I was working, running my own business, and going to college for those years. And I was not in great health, although I was in my early 20s, which kind of makes up for the not so great health in a lot of ways, because you get that natural 20-year-old energy. But now in my 40s, no, I think that being on top of your health is absolutely a game changer if you want to be super productive and also be there and present for your family, which is really important to me. That is my number one priority, is to be present and attentive for my family. All of these other things, all of the entrepreneurship, definitely come second to that. So, like I said, I have spent almost 20 years being a working mom, and I have never put my kids into daycare or sent them off to public school. Although my eldest did do public school for 2 years to help out with some dyslexia problems she was having. She needed some more support. So I won't say I didn't ever put them in public school, but not in the same way as a lot of people do in order to get that time to go to work. But I digress. The main reason that I chose to learn how to be a working stay-at-home mom was because I did not want the system or someone else to raise my kids. It was very, very, and still is very, very important to me to be there most of the time. And so back when Ari was little and I was a single mom, and my ex-husband actually was in prison and in rehab, so I didn't get child support for a long time. And I didn't have a sugar daddy or parents that would foot the bill or anything like that. So it was really up to me to keep a roof over our heads. And I didn't want to go through the government for welfare because they actually, at the time, were asking for requirements such as VA, XX, proof and some other things that I didn't feel comfortable with participating in. And so I chose to opt out of that. And instead, as a young mom, I was 22 when I had her. So as a young mom with nothing but my GED, I decided that what I should do was go back to school part-time to get a degree and to also do jobs that I could bring Ari with me. So when she was a baby and a toddler, I nannied and I babysat. I started a housekeeping business and I would bring her with me. When she was little, I would wear her in a wrap or in a backpack and I would just clean while I had her on me. Occasionally, I would work waitressing jobs, and occasionally my mom would babysit for me for that. So I was really scrappy. I really was putting things together as I could. But even back then, it was super salient to me that I would not be sticking her in daycare. I had heard horror stories about some local daycares where kids had actually been left in buses or other things and had passed away. And I was determined that I would keep her out of that system. And as a baby, I did everything I could to keep her with me as much as possible. And I didn't have a whole lot of support in the way of babysitting. My mom did babysit for me occasionally, but mostly it was up to me. And so sometimes I had to bring her with me to college classes. And I learned a lot navigating all that. I learned a lot of tricks, and I perfected the art of working with a little one underfoot or attached to my boob. I learned how to type one-handed while breastfeeding. Learned how to clean a whole house top to bottom with a baby strapped to me. I was pretty scrappy, and I had to be in order to make that happen. So 5 years of college as a single mom, and I graduated with honors through the honors program, and I made it happen, and it was like sheer will and determination. And so I then did it again 4 more times. When Ari was 8, I got remarried, and I had my next set of children, my second set of children, my 4 little ones. But I did want to say there, I believe, is a myth that I would say is probably perpetuated by the system, because the system really wants women to be in the workforce and children to be in the public school system. But the lie that we've all been told is that getting to stay home with your children and raise them and teach them at home is a privilege. It's a privilege only for those with a high income. And I will say, as a single mom with nothing but my GED and starting out with 0 income when I became a single mom when Ari was 1 year old, it's just not true. It's just not true. What it really comes down to is you've got to be resourceful if you are not resourced. And you can do that. You can do that. And even when I got together with my current husband, we weren't making hardly any money. We were very, very low income. And it's not just for the privileged. You can make it happen if you have the desire and will to make it happen. And I think it's really important to say that, because I believe that this myth, this lie, is perpetuated on purpose to separate moms from their kids, to make them feel like they have to. And if there's something in you that is, just a niggling suspicion, or that feeling in your gut that's telling you that it's not right to send your kid away so that you can work, it's not right to send your kid away from you for that many hours a day so you can bring home an income, listen to that gut feeling. Listen to that gut feeling, and listen to these tips, and you can do it. You can empower yourself, and you can do it. It takes some work. It takes some rewiring of your belief system and flexibility. And I had to rebalance after every single one of my kids was born. I had to shift and rebalance the whole system and learn again, because each kid brings their own personality, their own set of unique characteristics and challenges to the mix. So I had to rebalance after having each one of my 5 kids. But I did it because I love entrepreneurship. I love, after creating that very first business, my nanny business, creating my business cards and my flyers and getting myself out there, and then doing it again with my house cleaning business. I just love the process. I am absolutely in love with being an entrepreneur. So for me, it was two drives. One, loving the entrepreneurial lifestyle and the rewards that I get from that. And then 2, loving the freedom to stay at home with my kids, the freedom to be my own boss and make my own decisions and be in charge of my own destiny, my own schedule. To me, there's just nothing better. I'm very into the freedom lifestyle, and it definitely fits with that. But it's not easy. There's no magic trick or life hack. You can't guarantee success, and that's up to you. That is up to you. You have to put in the work. It is hard. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. There's nobody that's going to be sitting there telling you what to do. And that's for a lot of people, that's a draw to having a regular job, is there's this structure, 9 to 5, whatever, a boss telling you what to do. And I know for some people, it might seem really scary to step out and become your own boss. And maybe it's not for everyone. But for me, the idea and the participation in having someone over me telling me what to do and controlling my life and my schedule is just a complete no-go. That is very uncomfortable to me personally. So entrepreneurship is totally my jam for sure. And the reward of keeping my kids with me is just, I can't even explain how much that means in my life. And to be modeling them work ethic and responsibility, because they're like around a lot of times, like right underfoot. A lot of times when I'm doing these recordings, like right now, they're downstairs. I'm paying my 10-year-old to babysit the other 3 littles, 10-year-old, 8-year-old, 4-year-old, and 2-year-old. And they're just downstairs. I'm up in my office and I'm asking her to keep them quiet for 1 hour so that I can get some work done. I do now have the ability to pay for babysitters. And since I have an 18-year-old who is a mom herself, I can get her to come over and babysit for me at least 1 day a week, which is nice. So back when Ari was little, I could not afford a babysitter. I couldn't afford any help. I had to do everything on my own. And I do think that if you have that ability to pay somebody to have a trusted helper, or maybe you don't even have to pay. Maybe you have a mother or an auntie or something that can come in and help, is so key, really. That has been such a game changer for me. I'm so glad now to be resourced enough to be able to afford that hired help. I also have somebody that comes over and does housekeeping for me. And without those things, I would not have time to do these extra things that aren't bringing in an income, like the blog and the podcast. These are labors of love. And I absolutely just get so much personally from doing them, in the connection and in just the good feelings that I get from being able to share this information with other women. But they don't bring in any income. And so I definitely wouldn't be able to put all the hours per week into something like this if I didn't have the ability to have someone help me like that. And my scrappy little 10-year-old, she loves making a few bucks in order to help me out. She asks if she can babysit every week, because she's watched me her whole life and now she's a little entrepreneur herself. So I do have some tips and tricks that I've written down that are definitely things that have helped me in this. So if you are interested in starting your own business or doing some side hustles or freelance work, or even if you're trying to take on a part-time job at home from your home office or something like that, these tips will all be helpful. The first one is to be flexible and expect flexibility. Raising kids teaches you flexibility and patience for sure. And a toddler is your best teacher for this. They're so good if you allow them at teaching you flexibility and patience. And so cultivating that is really important. Like any second now, a kid could come busting in through the door and interrupt this podcast recording, and I have to press pause and I have to figure out where I was and come back and start over and edit and whatever. And that's just part of it. And that literally happens about 75% of the time when I'm recording something. And, I just have to go with the flow. I have a little handwritten door tag on my door that says, "Shh, mom is busy working." that I put on when I'm working. But, the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old, they don't read yet. And another thing is working with your children around requires flexibility from your job. It requires flexibility from bosses if you have them, or clients or customers, because kids get sick, kids have bad days, kids make messes, and kids need help, and kids are sometimes loud. And I have always been really upfront with my clients. When Ari was little and I was housekeeping and nannying, part of the initial conversation was always, my baby or my small child is going to be with me every single day. And this is what that looks like. And my kid comes first. And if she's sick or, this kind of thing, it was always a very upfront conversation. And if that didn't work for the particular client, well, then it wasn't a good fit and we moved on. So I didn't ever want that to come as a surprise. So I was always very upfront about it. And even now when I'm working with clients, if I'm on Zoom call or whatever, they know there's a possibility a lot of times that there could be an interruption. And so I try as hard as I can to not let that happen by having someone who is in charge of the kids, or when possible, I try to get them out of the house to go with my eldest daughter to a park or something like that. But there are times when, yesterday I was recording a podcast with someone, and my kid, my door was locked. They went out of their room onto my balcony, walked around to the sliding glass door, and opened my sliding glass door that the balcony connects the 2 bedrooms. So they saw the sign and everything. And surprisingly enough, that was my 18-year-old that did that, interrupted my podcast recording. Shit happens. And you just gotta roll with it. Kids come first. And that's just how it is. And I never want to hurt them in order to make a client feel better. But it's important to plan ahead. Have someone in charge of them, have snacks, have activities on hand. And when it comes down to it, worst case scenario, I have used the dreaded television as a babysitter before. There's been times when I just had to get something done and I had no other way around it. And you know what? You throw on a Disney movie, and that's not the best babysitter, but if it comes down to it, I will use the TV as a babysitter. Try not to make that a habit though. But yes, planning ahead, making sure they have things to keep them distracted, keep them occupied is really important. And be adaptable. It's the way it is with kids. Things come up, and have a plan B and a plan C. And it's a very important skill to have if you want to try to work with children underfoot around in the house. And each phase of childhood has its own unique set of challenges to adapt to. And each individual child has their own temperament to consider. When Ari was little, or when any of the kids have been little, you can work with them in a wrap. I've run a couple of different cooperatives and nonprofits, and I have literally gone to almost every meeting with a nursing baby strapped to me in a wrap because I've been in that phase of motherhood up until now for a solid 10 years. Then when they're in the toddler phase, they're little whirlwinds and they're running around. They need a lot more support. When they get older, they can be more helpful. They can also be occupied with a game for an hour or things like that. And then when you get the bigger kids, then they can graduate into being helpers. They can help with chores. They can help with babysitting younger siblings. But they also come with their own set of needs. They have activities and practices and, their own schedules, their social schedules, their friend groups and that kind of thing. So there's all that to consider. You have to be able to roll with the punches and change your workflow to meet the needs of your changing children. And your work style will also need to adapt to having children around. If you're used to working in a quiet office, kiss those days goodbye. If you want to be a homeschooling mompreneur like I have been this whole time, you're going to have to get used to working in the chaos and with the chaos. And I have actually perfected the art of tuning my children out, which drives my husband absolutely crazy because he does not have this remarkable ability. And so if they're screaming in play or squabbling or those kinds of things, I pretty much don't even hear them unless it's a scream of pain. You can tell the difference. Or if they're really fighting and they really start yelling at each other, there's a pitch, there's a tone of voice that gets my attention. But when they're just like screaming in play, running around, they've got their scooters in our house going back and forth across the house, or their hoverboards literally back and forth across the house. I'm at the kitchen table on my laptop, probably like nursing my toddler and typing with one hand, doing a blog or something. And just complete chaos all around me. And it just doesn't even bother me anymore. And this was a superpower I had to develop. And I actually started developing this in when Ari was a toddler or a little one, and I was in college, because, there were a lot of times I had to write papers. Like, I had to get things done and for classes, and I didn't have a babysitter. And so I learned to type one-handed while breastfeeding. Like I said, I learned to just tune things out and just to really be able to get into my writing and write my papers while having the distraction of being there alone with a toddler to care for, which is very, very distracting. And yeah, so you probably have to develop your own skill set. Again, meditation helps with this. The more clear you are in yourself, in your mind, the more grounded and centered you are, the easier it is to deal with these things. And sometimes things can't come up that can't be ignored in the moment, and I have to set my work down. And so I've developed the ability to do that, to step away and to come back to it. And all of these are skills you can learn. And at first, it is really fucking hard. I am not going to lie. It is really hard. I am not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you, oh, if you've been working a regular job and now you want to transition to being a stay-at-home mom with your kids and working from home, running your own business, it's not just so easy. It really does take work. It takes time to get used to. It takes learning a skill set, but it can be done, and it can be super enjoyable. Another really big tip that I have for you is to develop your willpower. If you do not have strong willpower, there are ways to develop it. That would be for another podcast. But develop your willpower or you will fail. You will not be able to do this without having a strong will. And for me, the biggest thing with that is to remember my why. And so, like I said at the beginning of this transmission, for me, keeping my babies out of the system, keeping my babies out of daycare and public school is my big why. My why has always been super salient. I want to raise my own kids full time because that is what is best for them. And so keeping that in mind for me has helped me to develop that willpower and that drive to go on. And when I say raising my kids full time, I mean keeping them out of the system. I homeschool. I feed them from scratch meals. I know what they're up to, who they're around, what they're doing, what conversations they're having on a daily basis. And also, I am passing down my wisdom. I am teaching them about life. We have daily rituals and conversations. I value and prioritize the relationship that I have with them. And these things are super important to me. And so anytime I'm feeling frustrated or impatient or stressed out, I go back to that. I take a deep breath and I go back to that. And I remember that is what is important. That is the number one thing for me. And I do have moments where I am like, I can see why people would put their kids in school for 8 hours a day. It would be so nice to have like a quiet house and just to like sit there for 8 hours to work on something. Oh my God, that would be crazy. So, I understand that. But for me, it's always just been not worth the trade-off. So it's not worth it to me to miss out on these years. They're only our babies for so long. And I know that because my 18-year-old has moved out and she has her own baby and her boyfriend's talking about joining the military. So she might get stationed somewhere far from me. And I would never, ever go back and trade all the one-on-one time that I got with her for having a kind of career that required me to be at work every day, all day. Just wouldn't do it, ever. And someday they'll all be out of the house. And then if I do want to spend 10 hours of every day working, that's what I can do. And the thing about being an entrepreneur, it doesn't feel like work most of the time. A lot of the time it feels like fun. It's creative. It's like I said, it's birthing something that is not a baby. You're birthing a business, you're birthing a new course, you're birthing a new idea. And maybe you're an artist, birthing a new painting. I have a good friend who's a jewelry artist, and for her, she's a single mom and she's making it work to work part-time and have this beautiful jewelry business where she makes these beautiful, the Hoppy Toad. I'll just give a shout out to Karen. She is at the Hoppy Toad. She is on Etsy. She makes gorgeous, I wish I was wearing one of her necklaces. She makes gorgeous, actually, hold on. There, I've put it on for those of you who are watching and not just listening. She makes gorgeous, handmade, precious metal and gemstone jewelry. The Hoppy Toad on Etsy and Facebook. Go check her out. But yeah, so you might be a creative and doing something like that. Like, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. And that's one of the other things I love about entrepreneurship. So if it is something that is important enough, then you will be able to muster the willpower to get creative and to find ways to adapt to the various needs of both your work and your children. It is possible. And so cultivating that willpower is definitely key. And I think one of the biggest rewards for this, for me, has been teaching my kids entrepreneurship and financial responsibility. So my eldest, she has started her own nannying business, and we started a birth coaching business together, Aurora Holistic Birth, which was her dream to become a doula. And so I've helped support her in that dream. And my second oldest, my 10-year-old, she bakes and sells cookies. She makes jewelry and sells it. She babysits for money. My third, Ryan, she is almost 8 and she's a little hustler. She's always wanted, Mom, I'll give you a back rub or a foot rub. I pay her to do my pampering. She will also get paid to do the dishes and do other chores around the house. And she makes jewelry and bakes. And so the girls like to take baskets of their jewelry and baked goods to different events. And they go around selling them for a couple of bucks each. And my 10-year-old, she made like over $200 just selling cookies and saved up and bought herself an art tablet. So seeing the kids take this up and this just being like normal to them and them being like so scrappy and creative, how I have passed that on to them, to me is just so precious. Like I believe they are getting so much value from that. And I'm actually going to be starting next semester teaching our homeschool co-op a second round of entrepreneurship classes. And we are going to do a kids market where we are going to have all the kids do booths selling the goods that they've made. So I just think this is so important to pass this on, to model it and pass this on to our kids. And I just want to close by saying that I believe that our number one job as mothers is to be mothers. If you decide to bring someone into this world, I do believe that is your number one job, to shape them and to care for them and to lead them. It's my personal belief that I am here to help raise a better generation than mine was, to help inspire and guide and protect the future visionaries and leaders of tomorrow. That is one of my biggest missions in life. But that doesn't mean that you can't make some money too. That doesn't mean that you can't fulfill your dreams and you can't get out there and hustle and do your thing and get creative and have passion and drive. These both can happen simultaneously. I am living proof and I am in love with it. I love it. It fills me up. I feel fulfilled. I feel happy in this. It is definitely possible to find that balance, to find that joy, and to find that freedom in being a mompreneur. And I did also want to just give a shout out to both my husband and my ex-husband, because I do want to say that without their support for all of these years, that I wouldn't have enjoyed the freedom that I've had to explore. I was able to do full-time college in the honors program because my ex-husband moved in with me and our daughter again to be there to help watch her. I've been able to do volunteer work with my community, do lots of different community projects, and create multiple different businesses and try new things because of the support of my husband. So I did want to say that shout out to them. I definitely haven't done all of this alone, and not having to be the sole breadwinner and have it all on my shoulders has definitely allowed me to explore and to be more creative. And for that, I am very appreciative. I would love it if you checked out my latest birthing in business, which is my 7-day detox course. This is the first of 7 courses that will be dropping, and they are part of the Ecstatic Habits series. So each course is teaching you habits that you can stack in order to make your life more ecstatic. And I am launching the first one as the 7-day detox, because I believe that we need to start at the base with a clean slate with our health. And so this walks you through a healthy dietary change and then detox practices that support your natural detox pathways. They're gentle and effective and even enjoyable. This is not some kind of hard cleanse that is going to make you regret life. And so I have been doing these practices for many years, and I have put them together in a very simple, straightforward, easy to follow step-by-step guide with support materials, PDFs, videos, and accountability built in. And so this 7-day program is available on my website, NicoleGoffSpeaks.com. Or if you would like more support, individual one-on-one help, you can reach out to me at contact@NicoleGoffSpeaks.com. Or go to my appointments page, NicoleGoffSpeaks.com/appointments. I would be so happy to support you on your journey with mompreneurship or with health and wellness. So until next time, lovelies, goodbye.